Hello and welcome to another episode, our official first episode of the Reclamation Podcast, where we talk all things reclaiming your womanhood, your voice, your purpose, and your truth, along with your stories. I'm your host, Jexsaida Flores, mom, wife, soul sister, and the fierce leader of women who are done shrinking and who are ready to live boldly. And today is a special episode. It's going to be my birthday episode. I'm sharing reflections, truths, and anything else that comes through me that I would love to share with you from my 38th year around the sun. Before we dive in, make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube to continue to follow, and also make sure that you are following on Apple and Spotify, along with Instagram at Jexsaida. This past year was absolutely beautiful, blissful, brutal, and absolutely transformative. And I wanted to honor it the best way that I knew how, with truth, reflection, and speaking life over what's next. All right, so make sure that you grab your little tecito, cafecito. Maybe you're taking me on a walk with you, but this one's going to be special and personal. So let's dive in. First, I want to start with this year has definitely taught me that just because things feel or are falling apart, it is not failure. And I was able to anchor into that so much more. You know, where I got to learn that I didn't have to pretend that things were working anymore. I got to be okay with things falling away and falling apart so that better things can come together so that I can gain clarity. And a lot of that was in my business, you know, realizing that business is great and good and I have such freedom and flexibility. And also some things just weren't working anymore. Some things were not in alignment, not in the way in which I was doing them. They weren't making sense anymore. And it took me a long time for me to get there to be like, okay, I'm ready to surrender and I'm ready to let go of some things and to also work through the part of me that felt like it was going to be failure. So I was able to ground into that more in business, but also even in relationships. I want to say, you know, in my marriage, it wasn't even that things were falling apart, but some things were feeling a bit confusing with like, how do we get to this next level of connection between us? And it didn't mean that we were failing at anything. It didn't mean that anything was wrong or broken, but it did mean that it was time to like level up. And I didn't know how to communicate that. I didn't have the words. I didn't have the proper explanation. I couldn't explain what it is that I was asking for because nothing was actually wrong. But I do see how I was connecting maybe some failure and making myself wrong for feeling that there was another level of connection and I didn't know how to verbalize it. And then it was causing friction and misunderstanding. That was another lesson learned. It was so beautiful to be able to go through this process to really allow things to fall away and not be attached to the failure part of it. See that it was coming up, but anchor so much deeper into why it is that I am doing what I am doing and why things are falling away, and then trusting on the other side of that. So another lesson that I learned 1000%, which I just referred to, was my voice and speaking up. And so I'm going to reference this in terms of my marriage because it's where I realized that like I had silenced myself for a really long time, and it had nothing to do with my husband. It had nothing to do with our marriage. It had nothing to do with our relationship. It had everything to do with what it is that I had learned about relationships and marriage and who to be inside of these marriages. And so if nothing was wrong and nothing was falling apart, then there was no need for me to speak up. But also it was easier for me to silence myself versus rocking the boat or dealing with the unexpected. And so many of us I know can relate to this with like, oh, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to cause conflict. All of these things that don't have to be true, even while being in a healthy ass relationship. And him and I have a great marriage and a great relationship. Interesting how I found myself silencing myself in my marriage and no longer using my voice in certain aspects of it because I had already told myself that, well, that doesn't make sense for me to mention, or I'll suck it up. I'll deal with it. That's going to rock the boat. Like so many different areas that I didn't realize I was doing that. And if and when I was speaking up, it wasn't coming from a place of love because I was already trying to defend myself. And so to uncover that was so healing for me, to recognize that like, wow, I have silenced myself in my marriage. And also how that had spilled into other areas of my life, silencing myself, not saying the things, being afraid of rocking the boat. So interesting and such a great lesson that I learned because it wasn't serving any of us for me to feel like I couldn't say something because I was going to rock the boat. That was a really big aha moment because the things that I wasn't saying out loud was the exact things that was going to transform our marriage and our relationship, to create that deeper connection, to create that next level of us. And for me to understand that like my voice holds so much truth, so much love, so much compassion, and I get to speak up on the things that I want to speak up on, and not necessarily just in my marriage, but in other areas of my life. And so in business, for instance, recognizing that I wasn't saying certain things because there's certain people following me and I don't want to hurt their feelings, and that wasn't serving my audience. It doesn't serve my audience. It doesn't serve me when I'm not speaking my truth, because I know that I'm not trying to hurt those people. I know that I'm not directing any messages to those people. And if and when specific people are hurt by something that I say, they can reach out and we can have a conversation. But most importantly, a great reflection point for someone else to be like, oh, I see how that's bothering me. What part of that am I believing to be true about myself? Because that also is the truth, that the things that we hear or that other people speak that we believe to be true is also a great reflection point for us to go inward and to discover what part of me believes that to be true, that it is really bothering me and hurting me. And on the other side of that I have learned is like, if I'm still thinking about something and it's been 24 hours, I get to speak up on it, right? Maybe in the moment I can speak up about it, but also sometimes it's a matter of me going inward and trying to find that resolution if it fits. There's so many different ways in which this can and cannot make sense, but I'm just going to speak generally right now instead of going into like different scenarios unless something comes to mind. But I know that this is true for me, that if something is bothering me and now I have waited for it to kind of brew up and I'm still thinking about it a day later, my energy is going to be affected by that. So I get to speak up. I get to use my voice in whatever relationships that looks like. When I do that, I'm owning my truth. And in me speaking up, I am allowing that to move through me versus feeling like it has to stay in me. And there's something to be said about that. When we're not saying something, it's really messing with our energy and our mood and the way that we're feeling and the way that we're moving and the way that we're acting and like all of these things that doesn't have to be necessary. So great, beautiful lesson that I learned for myself about my voice, about speaking up, about speaking my truth, about uncovering this next level of vulnerability and authenticity for myself and my voice in my life. Another lesson that I learned was that I am the fucking blueprint. I'm the blueprint. I'm the strategy. This was a lesson that I learned from one of my coaches. And, I've been doing business for about 5 years now in the online space. I've had part-time jobs, full-time jobs, and things in between as I have run my business. And also I have invested a lot of money in coaches and everything else, and I would never take it back. However, there was something that she started teaching us that I was like, I needed to hear this, I am the blueprint. I am the strategy, and I get to decide what is going to work for me, my family, my business, my life. Like, yes, the guidance from others has been absolutely amazing and incredible and everything that I needed. And also I get to implement some parts and I get to leave the rest that isn't going to work, and it gets to be okay. But there is power in learning from others, and there is power in tuning into myself. So understanding that I am the blueprint, period, end of story. I get to decide. I get to take action. I get to move in the way in which I want to move. I get to create in the way in which I want to create. And then I get to tweak up and clean up certain areas. And so that for me was such a huge lesson learned within me in the way that I do life, in the way in which I want my business to go, my parenting, my marriage, so many different areas that I get to really ground into as I'm learning things, as I'm hearing things, as I have implemented things in my life. I get to take what serves me and I get to leave the rest, knowing that I am the blueprint and the strategy to everything that I do in my life, and I get to create it in the way in which I desire and not have to worry about anyone else. And I talk about this all the time because we're living life sometimes in the way in which we think and believe that we have to, and we get to really tune into what it is that we want and how it is that we want that to feel, look, and be for us. And so that was just another reminder, but especially in business for me, I needed to hear that. I am the blueprint. I am the strategy. I am who decides what is and isn't going to work, and it gets to be an inside job after I take in what I have already learned. Because sometimes we try to make the strategy of someone else's business strategy work for us, and it's not meant to work for us. Sometimes part of it works, and then we decide what the rest of it gets to look like, and it's okay. That for me was super big. Another thing that I have learned or really grounded into, I want to say, is my self-trust, my faith, the way that I move, the way that I think. This year has been so much of the embodiment of me truly embodying and seeing me become everything that I have worked for. And so I've been doing this work for about 6 years now. And this year I felt me being that woman that I have worked to become. And I'm so excited for where I am going, but to see myself be her here and now and to feel it has been next level. I have been planting seeds. I have been putting in the work. I have been doing the things. And this year was really about embodying all of that, embodying the parts of me, embodying those parts that I have reclaimed of myself, that I have raised the bar on for myself, those early mornings that I have continued to do because it fills my soul, those teachings, those learnings, the work that I'm doing, the way in which I show up, how I am speaking, my energy, like so much of the work that I have put in throughout the years, this year definitely felt like I am the embodiment. I am the her. I can feel her more than ever before. My connection with spirit, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. But for me, is like my connection with spirit has felt the absolute most grounded. I have so much clarity. I feel so powerful. I feel just really in tune with myself, my intuition, my purpose, the way in which I want life to be and to feel, and to know that this is just the beginning. Another thing that I have felt into is, if you know the circle of life, this is just my visual and how this works for me, but you know, the circle of life, but I picture my life like a pie, right? And there were these two little areas that for me were still a little like, something needs a little bit of tweaking. And that was my marriage and finances. And my marriage was really about like, how do we go deeper here? You know, everything is good and great. We don't have big, huge, crazy problems. That's not what's happening. But I can feel that we're ready for this next level of connection. And so that part, fell right into place. Him and I are doing the work. Him and I are very aligned with what it is that we want and where we want to go. And this next piece was the finances. And I had to also learn this piece of like, money is energy. And I am so inherently worthy and more than enough to have the money come into my life in the way in which I am desiring it to. And so I feel like as all these other pieces have fallen into place in my life, this last piece is literally making its way in as I've learned and undone the stories and the energy and the beliefs in which I was raised into, and society makes us believe that we need to work harder in order to make more, like all of these crazy stories. And for me to dig deep into where did I learn some of these lessons. And so although I have done tons of money work, I feel like these pieces, right, as I have done the work, needed to come into place to anchor in, because this is the foundation for all of the money and the abundance that is going to make its way into my life. And I want to talk about that part, and I want to document that part, because I have made money along the way. I've created offers that bring me money, right? But this next level of my business and my life gets to be bigger and better than I ever imagined. And that also requires me to take bold ass action. And so if you're in my space, something that I always say is that I am going to do the big, bold, and brave thing. And so along the way, that has looked differently, right? Because as I change and evolve, the big, bold, and brave actions and things change right along with me. And in this season of my life, it's being big, bold, and brave in knowing that I get to create the abundance in my life. And I also get to create the abundance of money to make its way into my life, to know that what I am creating and putting out into the world is making me the money that is allowing me to sustain my business, my family, my lifestyle, and allowing me to make the impact that I want in the world. Because when I don't have the money and I have to spread my energy, it doesn't allow me to have all the energy to pour into my community and into my work and into my family and my marriage and myself. And so in this season, it's really about remembering what it is that I am creating and why it is that I am creating what I am creating, and how I see this being a ripple effect and a movement for women to really reclaim themselves, to like reclaim your womanhood in the way in which you have never seen it happen before. Do it for the women that came before you and the women that are coming after you, but really grounding into this deeper feeling and meaning of like, when I create the wealth for my family, for life, for the world, I get to create bigger impact than ever before, bigger than I could have imagined. And so something else that Sarah Zula teaches us, like, how can you create this in the way in which you want it to work in your life? And so this is where I'm grounding into in this season of life and where I am headed. It's being big, bold, and brave, and knowing that I get to create these big, bold, brave offers to really help women transform their entire fucking life in the way that I have been able to. I am living a dream. I have a life that I have freedom and flexibility and happiness and joy. And I have my slow mornings, and I have all of these, not even just the materialistic things. I have the house and all of that, but I have a life that's full of love and peace, right? And this next piece gets to drop into my life that it creates a whole another level of peace of mind in my life. And so in this season, it's about anchoring deeper into my purpose and my why and my mission, and finding those people to lock arms with that are ready to run with me, and also looking into creating other streams of income and being big, bold, and brave in those areas, knowing that the same way that I have built my business and not worrying about what other people think and believe, because that's not going to get me where I'm going. The same thing has to happen as I add streams of income into my business so that I can continue to have money flowing in, so that I can sustain my household, have the lifestyle that we deserve, take my kids on vacations and all of that in my house, but also for it to pour into the communities that I live within, for me to pour into the causes in which I want it to be, for it to pour into my communities that I want to create, into my work, into my business, and everywhere else. And so that is where I am headed, is really creating the wealth in the finances, the wealth in also my knowledge, also in my health, in these other areas, to really amplify these other areas of my life as I anchor this other piece in. So wanted to share all of that. That was a lot. I wanted to share all of those pieces, all of those insights, also where I'm headed and where I'm going as I continue to ground into my purpose and into my why and mission in a bigger way than ever before. Because this year is really about walking in my truth in a bigger, bolder, braver way than ever before. Also, this deeper self-trust and faith and belief in myself, in the divinity of God's spirit, to be loud about my truths, about mission, about my vision, of my wisdom, my medicine, and to live in this unshakable faith way of living. And I hope that you too get to take away something that allows you to be big, bold, and brave as you move through life, as you make decisions through life, as you really get clear on where it is that you want to go in this next year of life. Maybe your birthday has passed. Maybe it's coming. It doesn't even matter. It could be day one for you, where you are deciding that I'm going to be big, bold, and brave. And this is the next thing that I am anchoring into, because I want this type of life. Get clear on it. Move with faith, with conviction, with discipline, with love, with patience, and make it fucking happen, because you can. And also this year was so much of being grateful, being so grateful and thankful for the versions of me that got me here, that pushed through, that continued to build the resilience, to build her mindset, to build her faith, her self-trust, her confidence, like so many parts of me and versions of me that allowed me to get here today. And just being so grateful. Also so grateful for every single soul sister that walked this path with me, that believed, that had faith, that encouraged me, that believed in me, that lifted me up. Like, thank you. And I also pray that every single woman finds their soul sisters that walk this path with them, that are anchored in genuine connection, love, compassion, patience, trust, and really finding those soul sisters, because there's something to be said about that. To have those circle of people who hold you accountable, who see you at your highest, greatest, brightest light, and that can pour into you when you can't find it to do it for yourself, because you are so deserving of it. There's just so much beauty and greatness in those soul connections with soul sisters. And so if you don't have that community, if you don't have those connections, start finding them. Start getting clear on who it is that you want to connect with, and who it is that you want to create these connections and genuine relationships with, because I promise you that they will come along. I have invested in virtual sisterhoods and still have connections with certain women that we are soul sisters. I have created my own community of women that we are soul sisters. I have a hybrid community. I have an online community. You could get into the Sister Circle Collective, join us, but definitely give yourself the opportunity to get into community so that you can elevate yourself and rise, because that is what this is about, reclaiming your womanhood in whatever season of life you are in. Right. Well, that was a whole lot of medicine for me, for you, for us. And if this episode touched you, make sure to share it with a friend, share it on your stories, make sure to leave a comment, make sure to send me an email, whatever it is that you want to share. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear your feedback, your stories, your shares, and how this may have touched you, where you reflect and see yourself in the stories that I have shared and the lessons that I have shared. And also, please leave a review if you're listening on Apple, or Spotify, leave a review. You can comment on Spotify. And if you are on YouTube, make sure to leave it in the comments. Leave any feedback, any reflections, anything you want to share, put it in the comments. And make sure that you are following and subscribing to all of the platforms that we are on. Stay connected here, and also so that you can stay in the loop, you can also get onto my email list. So if you go onto my Instagram, you go to the link in my bio, actually you could just send me a message and I'll be happy to send you the link to get onto my email list. You have an offer right now. We're open for a high-level mastermind. We go on a 9-month transformational healing journey for the woman and the mother who is ready to reclaim power, her purpose, and her peace. This is a hybrid experience, has one-on-one coaching, an exclusive luxury retreat happening in the Dominican Republic in November, community, sisterhood. It is full of greatness. Now is the time for you to get in. So make sure that you reach out to me if you have any questions, if you're ready to be enrolled. I am so here for it. We currently have about 7-8 spots left if you're listening to this in July of 2025. So make sure to grab your spot. Don't miss out. I'm flexible with payment plans and I am happy to welcome you in, especially if you've been feeling called to get clear, confident, and committed to your next level in healing, career, purpose, life. This is your official invitation. I would love to have you inside. Always remember, you are the blueprint. You get to decide how it is that you want to move through life, do life, feel, and create, because you are the secret sauce. Okay? Don't forget it. Get into reclaiming your womanhood within motherhood, within career, within whatever area of life it is that you are feeling called to reclaim the parts of you that you feel that you have lost and you're so ready to reclaim so that you can feel whole, peaceful, powerful, confident, all of what it is, things that you are desiring to feel and be in this lifetime, because you are so worthy. Let's go. I'm so happy to be here with you to riff on certain topics, to share any reflections, insights, my point of views, and all of the in between. And I'll see you in the next episode. Mwah.